In the heart of India's industrial boom, you've got these incredible machines that are literally building our world. But they also pose some serious daily risks to millions of workers. So today, we're going to break down the shield that protects them, everything from the legal rules to that final crucial line of defense. Just take a second and think about the immense forces at play on a factory floor. We're talking CNC machines that cut with incredible precision, industrial presses that stamp down with tons of pressure. The potential for a life-altering injury is always just a moment of inattention away. And look, this isn't some hypothetical risk. The data is clear. Accidents that involve machinery are a leading cause of harm in workplaces all across the country. So what's actually supposed to stop these things from happening? And that really brings us to the core question, right? When you're standing next to a powerful machine, what is the system that stands between you and a really bad day? Well, turns out it's not just one single thing. See, the smartest way to think about safety is that it's layered. The number one priority is always to get rid of the danger at its source, to basically engineer it out of existence. But when that's not totally possible, we turn to something called the hierarchy of controls. Okay, so this slide really shows the fundamental logic of industrial safety. You start with the most effective thing you can do, engineering controls, like putting up a physical guard. That protects everybody. Then you move to administrative controls, things like training. And only at the very end, as the absolute last line of defense, do you rely on personal protective equipment, or PPE. It's critical for sure, but it only protects the person who's wearing it. So the crucial point here is this. PPE isn't the first thing you reach for. It's the last and most personal safety net. It's that specialized gear you wear to protect yourself from the risks that engineering and procedures just can't completely get rid of. And this whole hierarchy, it isn't just a good idea or best practice. It's actually built right into the law. Over decades, India has created a legal framework specifically to mandate these safety measures and protect its workforce. And this legal commitment isn't new at all. It's evolved right alongside the industry. It started with the foundational Factories Act way back in 1948, got more specific with the Dangerous Machines Act in '83, and it's still being updated, like with the 2024 Safety Order, just to keep up with modern tech and standards. And these laws put the responsibility squarely on the employer. It's not enough to just hand out some gear. They're legally required to assess the specific risks, provide the right equipment for free, and make sure every single worker is trained on how to use it correctly. The burden of safety, it really starts at the top. All right, so we've covered the why. Now let's get practical and look at the what. This is the essential head-to-toe gear that stands between a worker and some very specific on-the-job hazards. Let's start right at the top. On any factory floor, the first rule is to protect your head, because the dangers can, quite literally, fall from the sky. The purpose is simple but absolutely vital. Shielding your head from a dropped tool or a falling piece of material, an impact that could be devastating. And to be effective, these helmets have to meet really tough national safety standards, no shortcuts. Now for what is arguably our most precious sense, our sight. Industrial work can create a storm of potential dangers, everything from flying sparks during welding to microscopic dust from cutting. This is exactly where safety goggles and face shields are essential. They create a clear physical barrier, stopping everything from high-speed particles to chemical splashes, hazards that could easily cause permanent blindness. And just like helmets, they have to be certified to national standards. A worker's hands are their main tools, right? They're also the part of the body most likely to come into direct contact with sharp edges, rough surfaces, or even hazardous chemicals. This is why there's not just one type of safety glove. The right pair is always chosen for the specific task at hand, whether that's handling chemicals or working with sharp metal, where you see these high-tech, cut-resistant materials like Kevlar become absolutely indispensable. And finally, let's look down at the foundation. A factory floor can be a bit of a minefield of heavy objects, sharp debris, and slippery surfaces. And that's exactly why your everyday sneakers just won't cut it. Certified safety boots with their reinforced steel toes are designed to withstand incredible crushing forces and prevent sharp objects from punching right through the sole. They are the literal foundation of a worker's safety. Okay, so theory and standards are one thing, but what does all this look like when you actually apply it in the real world? How do these layers of protection come together to make a real difference? Well, let's consider a real manufacturing unit in Gurugram. They were facing some common but very serious hazards from their machines. Things like the risk of a worker's clothing getting caught in a spinning part, and the constant danger of sharp metal debris flying through the air. And their solution was perfect, right out of the textbook. They followed that hierarchy of controls to a T. First, an engineering fix. They installed physical guards. Then, for the risks that were still there, they mandated the right PPE. It's that classic 1-2 punch of safety. And the result? A staggering 65% drop in incidents in just 2 years. Now, that's not just a statistic. That's real proof that taking a systematic approach to safety directly prevents injuries and, frankly, saves lives. But, having the right rules and the right gear is really only part of the story. For any safety system to truly work, it has to deal with the complexities of, well, human behavior. The reality is always more complicated. I mean, imagine trying to do precise work with bulky gloves or wearing a hot helmet all day long. If the gear is uncomfortable or doesn't fit right, the temptation to just skip it is very real. And of course, for companies, the cost of keeping all this equipment maintained is a constant challenge. And this really leads to the most important takeaway of all. Rules can force people to comply, but they can't create true safety. That happens when you build a culture of safety, when it becomes an automatic, ingrained part of every single task, every single day. So, I'll just leave you with this thought. The machine is guarded. The gear is on. What is the final, ultimate key to safety? It's the worker, the person who is vigilant, who is well-trained, and who understands not just the rules, but the reason behind them. That is the final and most important shield of all.